Hello everyone. In this installment of Correcting Conservapedia, we will address its assertions in regards to physical and mental health. I will not be reading the entirety of these sections as they are pretty repetitive. As always, there is a link in the description to the Conservapedia page if you wish to read it all. Atheism and mental and physical health. There is considerable amount of scientific evidence that suggests that theism is more conducive to mental and physical health than atheism, and some of the more significant findings are given below. For more information, please see Atheism and Health. Mayo Clinic, University Studies, and Other Research. The prestigious Mayo Clinic reported the following on December 11, 2001. In an article also published in this issue of Mayo Clinic Proceedings, Mayo Clinic researchers reviewed published studies, meta-analysis, systematic reviews, and subject reviews that examined the association between religious involvement and spirituality and physical health, mental health, health-related quality of life, and other health outcomes. The authors report a majority of nearly 350 studies of physical health and 850 studies of mental health that have used religious and spiritual variables have found that religious involvement and spirituality are associated with better health outcomes. While all of this is technically true, religious involvement and activity does have some benefits on one's health, except for one thing which I'll get into in a moment. This is not at all related to the beliefs they have, but the actions they are taking. Most religious organizations teach against unhealthy activity like smoking and drinking in excess. Church attendance results in social networking with people of like minds. When people are taught to live healthy lifestyles and socialize regularly with people who share a common interest, in this case religious belief, this is where the health benefits arise. It is not belief in God being rewarded, but living a healthy lifestyle that is producing these results. As I said, there still is a single thing that does attribute to health in a positive way that stems from the practice of religious observance. This is the development or belief of having a purpose to life. We have all heard religious people say that without God or heaven they would have no purpose, or they say atheism negates an objective purpose. Even this, however, can come from sources outside of religion. We can and do create subjective purposes to our lives. I was unable to find a single study that compared the effects the two have on personal health and well-being. I do think it would be an interesting endeavor to see if belief in objective assigned purpose or subjective created purpose yields differing results, what those differences are, or if there is no difference in the slightest. The Christian group Teen Challenge reported, Teen Challenge's claims of a 70% cure rate for the drug addicts graduating from their program attracted the attention of the U.S. federal government in 1973. Most secular drug rehabilitation programs only experienced a cure rate of 1 to 15% of their graduates. The National Institute on Drug Abuse, part of the U.S. Department of Health, Education, and Welfare, funded the first year of this study to evaluate the long-term results of the Teen Challenge program. Teen Challenge has a number of studies that indicate the high effectiveness of their drug treatment program compared to other programs. Studies indicate that consumers of secular counseling psychology programs show hardly any benefit at all for alcoholism. These claims are completely dishonest and inaccurate to reality. The 1973 study compared Teen Challenge with transactional analysis only. The findings were also the exact opposite. Where Teen Challenge was found to be effective, TA was found to be very effective. What benefits people in these treatment facilities is qualified staff. Also, addictive behavior is not cured, so no one has any success at curing it. It is simply treated, just like any other chronic condition. There is also no single measure of success in treatment. Both faith-based and secular treatment facilities are successful and effective if they employ qualified staff and if the patient chooses the facility most correct for them. A heavily religious person would be better served at a faith-based treatment facility. An atheist would not. A side note here is the criticism that Teen Challenge has. First, it receives federal funding and is a religious organization, therefore violating the First Amendment. Second, it has been mired in child abuse scandals. I'll leave a couple of links in the description to articles that discuss these allegations, scandals, and multiple instances of investigations. I cite these because abuse of children has a definite negative effect on their mental and physical health. Currently, there is an ongoing debate on whether Friedrich Nietzsche's insanity was caused purely through disease or whether his atheistic, nihilistic philosophical outlook on life was the cause. The ongoing debate is inconsequential and irrelevant. It means nothing. It was in fact caused by either physical or psychological disease, not personal philosophy. Any assertion to the contrary is laced with motive. It is all speculative and biased opinions. Atheism and suicide. Although there are recent studies relating to atheism being a causal factor for suicide for some individuals, an early proponent of atheism being a causal factor for suicide was the Reverend Dr. Robert Stewart MacArthur. In 1894, the New York Times stated the following in relation to atheism and suicide. Dr. Martin urged that a great cause of suicide was atheism. It was, he said, a remarkable fact that where atheism prevailed most, their suicides were most numerous. In Paris, a recent census showed one suicide to every 2,700 of the population. After the publication of Paine's Age of Reason, suicides increased. Implying that atheism is the cause of suicide is simply not true. If you look at a broad picture of the matter, you'll see that the top 10 nations of the highest suicide rates are relatively secular. But if you're not stopped at that point with the goal of showing that atheism leads to suicide, you'll note that 8 of these 10 nations are post-Soviet countries where totalitarianism, depressed economies, and a lack of basic human freedoms may be more significant in explaining the high rates of suicide than a simple lack of belief in a God. I left a link to a paper written on not only this, but secular societies in general that I highly recommend you read. Atheism and obesity. According to the Gallup organization, very religious Americans are more likely to practice healthy behaviors than those who are moderately religious or non-religious. Gallup declared concerning the study which measured the degree to which religiosity affects health practices. Generalized linear model analysis was used to estimate marginal scores of all 5 reported metrics after controlling for age, gender, race, ethnicity, marital status, education, log of income, and region of the country. Results are based on telephone interviews conducted as part of the Gallup Healthways Well-Being Index Survey, January 2nd through July 28, 2010, with a random sample of 554,066 adults aged 18 and older, living in all 50 U.S. states and the District of Columbia, selected using random digit dial sampling. I guess Conservapedia doesn't think any of their readers will fact-check them, so they went ahead and put that in there. The truth of the matter is if you are religious, you are more likely to develop adulthood obesity. Basically, they are implying the exact opposite of what is true. Simply put, they are lying. Again, there is a link in the description to a much more reliable source of accurate information on the subject than a Gallup poll. Nothing under atheism and alcohol abuse, so we'll go into atheism and sexually transmitted diseases. Atheistic populations commonly have significant problems with sexually transmitted diseases. See atheism and sexually transmitted diseases. Africa is actually quite religious and has sustained the worst AIDS epidemic since its discovery ever. In the United States, where religious people are the majority, we also have a large problem with STDs. Truth of the matter is that poverty levels are the greater contributor to the likeliness and proliferation of sexually transmitted diseases, not religious affiliation. So are other social and behavioral factors. Belief or disbelief in God is irrelevant. Sports performance, religious faith versus atheism. The Sports Journal is a monthly referee journal published by the United States Sports Academy. A journal article appeared in the Sports Journal entitled Strength of Religious Faith in Athletes and Non-Athletes at 2 NCAA Division III institutions. The article was submitted by Nathan T. Bell, Scott R. Johnson, and Jeffrey C. Peterson from Bell State University. An excerpt from the abstract of the journal article, Strength of Religious Faith of Athletes and Non-Athletes at 2 NCAA Division III institutions, declares, numerous studies report athletes to be more religious than non-athletes. According to Storch, Kolsky, Silvestri, and Storch, 4 reasons may explain why religion interacts with athletic performance. Before anyone accuses me of cutting it off there, I will tell you that is where Conservapedia cut it off. The reason for that is because those 4 reasons do not serve the implication that religious people perform better in athletics, but actually only helps the athletes who are religious cope with the stress and anxieties of athletic competition, including losses. There is a link to the actual article in the description. In fact, a recent study of children shows that non-religious boys' athletic performance is no less or more skillful than religious boys, and non-religious girls actually perform better. The discrepancy with the girls can be explained not because of a lack of belief in a God is a contributing factor, but more likely as a result of religious groups' tendency to encourage more traditional roles of the sexes.